Welcome to the Learning Series, where the power of understanding helps you make better decisions. All right, everyone, we're going to be talking for a few minutes about some things to think about if you feel your child may have autism, and really what should you do, what would be some next steps to consider here as you're just really trying to do some research here. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes. I really have 5 or 7 key points here. First, what is autism? Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about finding support groups to help you kind of move through and gather more information. I'm going to talk about taking care of yourself, learning about your child's unique needs, setting up a healthy home environment, engaging experts, and then really thinking about engaging a school program there. So let's jump in here, talking about what is autism. And really, essentially, autism is, it's really a lifelong developmental disability. And it's typically seen during early childhood. And it impacts both social skills and communication skills. And we use the term self-regulation, just really kind of their ability to control themselves in certain situations. I'll talk more about that as we get a little closer. And when you feel there's something going on with your child and you're not really sure, I use this term here, there's a lot to really process here. There's a lot to think about. And that's normal. You're just inundated with what should I do, where should I go, and that's very normal. And so that's what I'm really trying to do here, is just give you some ideas on where to go and what to think about. And then also, it's really vital to support each other in your family. If it's your spouse or siblings or even parents, there's just a lot of uncertainty, anxiety, stress. And so especially with the spouse, you really want to focus on supporting each other as you start this journey. And it really is. It's a journey. It's truly a journey. The other thing, too, is things change over time. If you've got some thoughts or concerns about your child, you should obviously be very attentive, because some people jump to conclusions or rush to make assumptions. And you need to give things time. Kids develop at different stages. Some kids are slower to develop. And so stay focused on the long haul here. It's not something that is going to be solved overnight, and all your questions are going to be answered overnight. They're just not. Another point here is your child's best advocate. And no one's ever going to love your child like you love your child. And so remember, you are their advocate. And getting the services they need, finding the right professionals to work with them, you play a key role in that, and really the leader of that. So stay informed and stay positive. Next thing here, really learning about your child's unique needs, strengths, and weaknesses. Critical point is to reach out to these early intervention services. Every state has early intervention services that are available to parents who have children that maybe have slight delays. One of my children had a delay as well. And your pediatrician is going to be the one that will help you with connecting you with that service. So sometimes they're called Early Start, sometimes they're called First Steps. It's a public service, public agency for these kids from birth, typically at age 3. So talk with your pediatrician. That's the first thing you want to do to get connected if you've got concerns about your child and what their kind of levels of abilities are, or any delays you might be just wondering about when I've checked out. And once you're connected with that early intervention service provider, it'll typically be like a clinician that comes out, might be an occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech. It varies. And they will work with you and your child. And you want to partner with them and work very closely with them and implement the interventions that they've recommended and are showing you how to do. So it'll be kind of a two-way street. They'll provide some services. Typically, they come out to the home most of the time in those early years. And then you're supposed to follow and need to follow up on those recommendations and do some of the work with your child that they show you how to do. And like I said, it could be physical, it could be communication, things like that, just to help move those developmental steps forward. Make sure that you follow the program, too, that they set up. It's important that you stay on point and you make sure you're working with that clinician, that early steps interventionist, because they want to see progress too for your child, and they need you to work in partnership with them. And then always focus on your child's strengths. You're going to notice weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, and we need to acknowledge those too. But I always say focus on the strengths even more. Build up the things you got that are good, and then intervene on those areas that you need help with. So, a takeaway here is get connected early on with the services that these early intervention services your pediatrician will connect you with. And really, too, think about if you have the resources, financial resources, to purchase some extra services if you can. Some people can, some people can't. But if you do have the financial resources, paying for extra intervention services is always good. Next one, taking care of yourself. And what that really is that you've already got a weight on your shoulder right now just by listening to this and seeking this information out. So you need to be cognizant of taking care of yourself, your spouse, other people in your family that might be taking on some extra loads because of you need that help. So I note there, in the sense of taking time for yourself, I know play dates, having babysitters come in, being around other like-minded parents that might have children that are very similar to yours, so that, one, you can kind of have a support group there. Another thing to just ponder about taking care of yourself is, the why me question. Everyone has that. It's normal. You wonder, why me? Did I do something? If my child has some type of potential disability, there's something that I maybe made a mistake with. And I'll say, fight past that. It's a normal part of this process and understanding, but move past that. It's not your fault. There are things that are available to your child to help answer a lot of the questions that you have right now. So fight that urge to blame yourself at times. And it's really important as I've mentioned, to support your spouse. It's impactful on both of you, and so just they're going through a lot of the same things you are oftentimes, and just be aware of that. And then live your life like you want to. Yes, you're going to have to make some adjustments, no question about that, but that doesn't mean you can't have a full and enriching life with your child, and your child doing the same. So set goals. Don't let obstacles stand in your way. Might take a little extra planning, extra time, but that doesn't mean you can't have a very full and enriching life. And then find other parents like yourself that can give you some ideas of how to maybe make some adjustments or do things that might impact your child in a positive way. It's always good to have other like-minded people. So, takeaway here is, keep living and enjoying life. Always remember that you and your child can do so many things together, and so stay positive about that. Find support groups. There are a lot of different support groups for parents. If it does turn out that they have autistic kind of characteristics early on, get connected. Your child's best advocate. So learning is critical. Attend local national conferences. The National Society, Autism Society, has great resources. I've got a link right there you can click on. They have oftentimes local chapters you can meet, and other parents, etc., and attend. And then find out what other services are available within your community. And that goes back to those early intervention service providers I talked about a few minutes ago. that your pediatrician can hook you up with. They're great resources. So find support groups, become an advocate. If there's something that you're looking for and you can't find your community, then go outside your community. Call, a large city nearby, and just find out. They have other agencies in those cities too, to get some other ideas if you're not in a bigger community that has many services. Setting up a healthy home environment. I think it's really important to make sure that you have structure in your home, especially if you have a small child that may have some autistic tendencies. And so some of these things here that I've listed are vital. Setting up schedules, being consistent, rewarding things, rewards that you offer your child are really important for jobs well done. Also finding things that can relax your child are all critical. I've talked a little bit about finding a behavior specialist that might be one of these extra services that could help your child. And again, if you can afford some of these extra services, they're great, but behavior specialists are really trained to work with children who have autism that might have some of these kind of overstimulation type of qualities. And just an example, I worked with a child that tinfoil was a big stimulizing force for him. And so when the tinfoil was brought out, he got excited, but it also calmed him. And in the schools, though, you can't have a tinfoil ball out all the time. So we had to regulate that. And same thing at home. You're going to find things that your child just really loves, but you need to regulate that. And working with behavior specialists, early intervention specialists, will give you some feedback on how much you should regulate that, when to bring it out. When I talk about autism proofing your house, it kind of connects in. I had another child that really liked vacuum cleaners, and that was a calming influence on them. But you couldn't have them playing with a vacuum cleaner all day, and so they would put that in the closet and lock the closet, and they would only let them use that on certain occasions. So set your home up for success, so that your child can have some fun in the house. It shouldn't just all be structure and regiment, but you also though need to have a balance there between fun times, but then also having a schedule and a regiment that is consistent, that they can get used to and know that's an important part of life and in schools too. Engaging experts and professionals is needed. I mentioned earlier, start with your pediatrician and stay engaged with them. Work to identify the early intervention services that are available in your state. Like I said, even start, early start, things like that, first steps, they're available, and engage with them and follow through with the interventions they put in place when those specialists aren't there at the house. And then as they start to get near the age of 3, that's when they're typically eligible for public school services. And I would begin to reach out to the public schools early intervention specialist or early childhood coordinator if you have a child that's been identified or has autistic type tendencies, because they have yearly screenings, early childhood screenings, typically for preschool, that your child may be eligible for. And so it's good to reach out to the school as they start to public school in your area to see when those screenings are and if they might be eligible. Same thing for private schools. There's special schools too that are available. If you have the resources to do that, reach out to them, typically around between ages 2 and 3. The contract staff that I've mentioned, I think, are an extra benefit if you can, if you have the resources to use those. So The public school services are really good, and I'd encourage you to use those, and if you have the resources, to also contract. So what does it really kind of look like then if you do reach out to your public schools through these early kind of 3-year-old screenings that they have? They'll do those screenings, and typically then the results will be shared with you, and there'll be a decision made to see if they might be eligible for preschool services. And in those public schools, they typically have teachers that are specially trained to work with kids with early childhood disabilities, or developmental delays is really kind of what they typically lump them under. And then that'll start at age 3, and they'd be brought into, say, a preschool program or early learning program in a public school setting. And they would set up a plan for those kiddos, and they would also monitor that plan with you and meet with you regularly on that, typically once, twice a year, sometimes more if it's very involved. And those services, once they're in special ed services, typically it runs through age 21, especially if they're identified as having autism or autism-like behaviors. So if you're interested in learning more about this, you can click on the video link or the link down below. I have more resources that you can learn about what the public schools, what to expect in the public schools if you are going to begin to access their services. Try to answer the questions there. Again, I want to encourage you to really be an advocate for your child and continue to learn and be a knowledge seeker. Thanks so much, and all the best.